So, what has law enforcement got themselves into this time? Well, let's see. Person of interest identified in case of man found dead in Carroll County roadway, Illinois State Police says. Person of interest, investigation is ongoing, and special prosecutor. That should be a clue. Carroll County, Illinois State Police Special Agent Matt Kipping says a person of interest has been identified in the case of an 18-year-old who was found dead in the roadway last month. Kipping did not release any names and said the investigation is still ongoing. Carroll County State's Attorney Aaron Caney said a request for a special prosecutor was granted. According to Caney, the special prosecutor will be the one to bring any charges if they are warranted. Carroll County Sheriff Ryan Cloping said he is unable to comment on the details of the investigation. Carroll County Sheriff's deputies were called at 3:33 a.m. July 28th for a man found dead in the roadway on Illinois Route 78, just north of downtown Mount Carroll and south of Loudon Road. Later that morning, the Sheriff's Office referred the case to Illinois State Police, who was leading the investigation. State Police identified the man who died at Jackson Kradle of Mount Carroll. Alright, well, there's a couple clues. Person of interest, investigation is ongoing, and special prosecutor. They know who the people of interest are. It is an ongoing investigation. And the special prosecutor. Okay, so here's how this works. You typically have a prosecuting attorney who most people will know as a district attorney, and they represent government in criminal cases. They to prosecute, criminals. The problem is when the criminals are government, like, cops, who most of the district attorneys are buddy-buddy with, this will create a conflict of interest, and they'll call in a special prosecutor, special counsel, you hear them say. The DA, the original DA, might not want to bring charges because there's a little bit of political jobbing going on. They're not about to get into the middle of that. They kind of want to keep their relationship with law enforcement going, because if they decide to prosecute these bad criminal cops, then the next case that comes up that don't involve the cops, the district attorney or the prosecuting attorney needs law enforcement to bring evidence so they can bring cases. And then if the cops are like, we're not bringing you anything else, you prosecuted my buddies, then, it creates a hostile working environment. I mean, government is there to help government, and, they're not really about prosecuting themselves, but they will prosecute you. So they'll call in a special prosecutor, or independent counsel, they'll call it. Don't be blindsided into thinking that this is some else. We're going to bring them from the other side. No, they're like, if you're in Wilmington, North Carolina, they might bring in a special prosecutor from Jacksonville, North Carolina. If you're in Jacksonville, North Carolina, they might bring in a special prosecutor from, probably wouldn't go as far as Raleigh, but it's just going to be someone that's not in that close-knit area. And they're brought in to basically do what the prosecuting attorney won't do. And it's all just one kicking the can down the road. So now we have this. Recordings, documents uncover details of initial response to death of Jackson Kradle. New details are being shared about the July morning 18-year-old Jackson Kradle of Mount Carroll was found dead in the roadway. Through a records request under the Freedom of Information Act, this has received never before heard phone calls and never before seen documents about the case. On Saturday, Carroll County Coroner Matthew Jones said Kradle died from blunt force trauma to the head due to a motor vehicle pedestrian crash. and the never before heard phone calls to the non-emergency line at Carroll County Dispatch shows 2 sheriff's office employees reported Kradle on the side of the road. Okay, well, they found him and reported him, right? Well, not exactly. In this report, TV6 has chosen not to release the names of the employees because they have not been charged. TV6 will refer to the off-duty deputy, a man as employee 1, and off-duty dispatcher and paramedic as woman as employee 2. It begins around 3:30 a.m. on July 28th when employee 1 used a non-emergency line with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office to report he and employee 2 had discovered a body on Illinois Route 78 just north of downtown Mount Carroll. Note, there's graphic details about the condition of the body in all these calls. According to the call log for Sheriff Ryan Cloping, the morning Kradle was found around 3:32 a.m. Cloping received a phone call. It lasted about 2 minutes from an unidentified number. Here's a call log. County Dispatch could be heard in a recording from Broadcastify announced over the radio about 3:33 a.m. that a body had been reported at Highway 78 and Loudon Road, adding the caller said there was blood and brain matter. Now, Broadcastify, you can download that app on your phone, and you can go to your state, whatever it is, like it be North Carolina NC.gov, and you can get their broadcast number, and you can put it in Broadcastify, and you can hear all radio traffic around your area. At around 3:40 a.m., County Dispatch received a call on a non-emergency line from Illinois State Police asking if the county needed assistance and asked for further details about the incident. 3:52, another call from State Police to County Dispatch included the state asking the county dispatcher questions about if ambulance or EMS or coroner were being dispatched to the scene. It was in this call State Police tells the county dispatcher that 2 troopers located just south of Sterling at the time were on their way to the scene where the body was found. Later learned through records requests with Illinois State Police, the troopers arrived on the scene at 4:18. Bunch of records requests for the transparency they said that they were going to give. According to the media release from Sheriff Ryan Cloping, an on-duty deputy and a city officer who were closer to the scene were sent there. When the on-duty deputy got to the scene, the employees who found the body were already released to leave. Ask any questions? No. Note any direction of travel, where they were at, where they were coming from, where they were going. Ask them if they had been drinking. Look at any marks on the roads. No. According to a records request, all these records requests to get any information with the Mount Carroll Police Department, the camera in the squad car was not working at the time the officer responded to the scene. Of course they weren't. They'll tell you a cable wasn't connected or something. And they'll likely have all that, but they're not going to share it with you. They'll just lie and cover. Well, the cameras, why are the cameras not working? They get millions of dollars for the shit they wanted for transparency. That's never transparent. Anytime shit like this goes down that involves them, cameras weren't working. It's always something that you can't see what actually happened. Sheriff Cloping said the coroner was contacted at 5:14 a.m. while crime scene services were still processing the scene for possible evidence. The timing of what happened after remains unclear, but Sheriff Cloping says the coroner removed Kradle's body before calling Mount Carroll Fire Chief Marty Hockman to conduct a washdown of the roadway to reopen Illinois Route 78 to traffic. The investigation, not much of one. The following day, July 29th, Employee 1 and Employee 2 were notified by Sheriff Cloping that they were both subject of an internal investigation for their involvement in the discovery of the body. They were also put on administrative leave pending the investigation. The notification added that both were also subjects of an internal investigation being conducted by the Illinois State Police related to the death of Kradle. Paperwork, here's the time and date, who it went to, who it went from, and attaches the documents that were given yesterday. If you have any questions, thank you, Chief Lambert. Part of the email sent to the 2 employees includes the following. The purpose of this leave is to give the county an opportunity to investigate this incident with minimal disruptions to the workplace and to consider disciplinary action up to and including termination may be necessary. Thought they didn't have any person of interest. The notice to both employees also states employees are being investigated for violation of Illinois Vehicle Code relating to the death of Jackson Kradle, violations of the Illinois complied statutes related to the death of Jackson Kradle, unbecoming conduct, conduct that reflects negatively on the department, conduct which reflects discredit upon the officer as a member of the Carroll County Sheriff's Office or impairs the operation or efficiency of the department or deputy. The notice goes on to provide more details about the purpose of the investigation into both employees. This investigation is to identify and examine the facts and circumstances regarding your activities during the evening hours of July 27th and the early morning hours of July 28th at the time of this incident. An additional aspect of the investigation will focus on whether your conduct is in said incident violated any rule or regulation, policy or procedure, general or special order or directive of the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. That's a bunch of, they're trying to see if they can figure out how to wiggle their way out of holding them accountable for anything. Both employees were set to be interrogated on the afternoon of July 31st after receiving 48 hours to consult with a union representative. On the morning before their respective scheduled interrogation, both Employee 1 and Employee 2 notified Sheriff Cloping they were resigning from their positions effective immediately. Employee 1 and Employee 2 are no longer employed by our agencies. Please do not discuss any county-related business with them. If any of you need to discuss this with us, please reach out any time, but please understand that we cannot discuss the details regarding their departure. August 5th, Illinois State Police Special Agent Matt Kipping said a person of interest had been identified in the case but would not be named at this time. Then on September 6th, in response to another FOIA request, gave the dates of employment for Employee 1 and Employee 2, stating both ended their employment with the Sheriff's Office on July 31st. Not know if they were boyfriend or girlfriend. I think they might have been husband and wife, a deputy and a paramedic. I'm not sure if she was a paramedic or a 911 dispatcher. Anyway, we'll find out here in a minute. On October 25th, in response to another FOIA request, the sheriff shared recordings of a 911 call made from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. the night Kradle died. Of those 6 recordings, none had anything about a body being found, which we later learned was due to it being reported on a non-emergency line. See, non-emergency line can typically, the public can hear that, and which don't understand why. Well, you're probably trying to keep it on the DL, and if it goes through the official 911, then everybody could be, what am I trying to say? Non-emergency line. None had anything but, which we later learned was due to it being reported on a non-emergency line. Non-emergency is typically, you call in and you say, hey, there's a car. It's on the side of the road. It's got some busted windows. At exit 12. I'm heading east. It's going to be on the right-hand side of the road. I'm going down the road, and that's it. Non-emergency. Emergency line is more time, date, place, everything that's going on. Like, it's... Anyway, on October 28th, Kradle's father, Joshua Sizzler, told TV6 he had not heard from the Illinois State Police in a couple months. On November 6th, in response to a third FOIA request, the sheriff provided the following: recordings of all inbound non-emergency calls from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. the morning Kradle's body was found, copies of all internal county emails sent to county employees that mentioned the names of Employee 1 and Employee 2 during the 3 days following Kradle's death from July 28th to July 31st. Logs of all calls made to and from the work phone of Sheriff Cloping from 3 a.m. to 12 p.m. the day Kradle died. On November 7th, the sheriff sent a statement outlining the actions taken by the sheriff's office the morning Kradle's body was found and during the subsequent investigation. When the TV asked on November 8th if Employee 1 and Employee 2 were considered suspects in the investigation, Illinois State Police declined to answer. Of course, government covering for government. A representative did say that the investigation had been turned over to the Appellate Prosecution's Office in Springfield, Illinois. Then on November 9th, the county coroner told TV6 Kradle's cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head due to a motor vehicle pedestrian crash. And an inquest has been scheduled for December 13th to determine the manner of death. The coroner stated the manner and cause of death are both important. He also said in determining the manner, there will be witnesses and evidence presented to a jury. As of Monday, investigators have not named any suspects. It's a developing story. They'll always tell you it's a developing story. They have everything they need. Question is, what are they going to do about it? And I can't. Okay, this has all of them. I think this beginning one has the whole. Hold up.
Illinois State Police
Stop. I thought I had the dogs were in the house, so you're probably gonna hear them whine here in a minute. They want to go out.
This is Jackson Kradle. As of tomorrow, he will have been dead for 100 days. And for the first time tonight, we can tell you about how he died and the two people who may hold all the answers. Good evening, I'm William Ingalls. Since Jackson died 3.5 months ago, the Mount Carroll community has faced silence from law enforcement over how he was killed and who may be responsible. This is what it looked like on Highway 78 in Carroll County in the days after Jackson's death. We've been investigating since this happened on the ground in Mount Carroll, asking questions and getting leads. Leads we asked authorities about. They wouldn't answer, citing an ongoing investigation. We waited, just like Jackson's family and an entire community who held protests demanding answers. We couldn't wait anymore, so we started using the Freedom of Information Act. It can require authorities to turn over public documents like emails and 911 calls. And that's where TV6's Kyle Bales comes in. And Kyle, you've been working a lot to get answers for this family and for this community too.
That's right, Will. Now, all they want is justice for Jackson, and that's what we've tried to do, find the truth. We've already shared some of our findings with you. I asked for all the 911 calls from that night, but we got nothing reporting the body, just as from this dispatch.
22, I'm getting a report of a body, 78 Loudon Road. Be advised, my caller states he has blood.
So how did Jackson's body get called in? The answer laid in the non-emergency line, which unwound a web of documents that begin to tell the story of what unfolded that night. Now, we received those from the sheriff's office last Wednesday, and we plan to take a few days to go through it all and make sure we told the story right. But the next day, Carroll County Sheriff Ryan Clipping broke his silence and sent out a press release with much of what they'd given us just the night before.
Of course they did. They knew they gave y'all information, and they wanted to get out ahead of it because they're like, hey, we're going to give you this information, but give us a couple of days. You release it on this day and this day. Okay, good. And then the sheriff's office knows, everybody knows when you're going to release it, so they'll release it before, and they'll be like, see, that's what we already told you. We're not hiding nothing.
But his release didn't paint a complete picture. Through calls that we've uncovered, here's how 2 off-duty employees found Jackson's body and what these employees were accused of that led to the resignations just days later. It was an early Sunday morning on July 28, 2024 at 3:31 where this story begins. But it's also where the life of Jackson Kradle ended.
We just got off at home, and we were headed up 78, and there's a body laying in the road just north of Mount Carroll on 78.
For the first time, you have just heard the person who reported finding Jackson's body, who was an off-duty deputy with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and we will refer to this man as employee number 1.
Like a deer? No, it's a body.
It's a body. He said it's a body. He didn't say it's a deer.
Like a person?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, did you guys stop?
Well, they stopped when they hit it.
Well, we stopped to check on it, and I'm calling you, yeah.
Yep. When we hit it, we stopped to call you.
Is it breathing?
Nope.
No. Alright, call me back if anything changes.
Now we fast forward 7 minutes to 3:40 when we hear an Illinois State Police dispatcher make contact with the Carroll County dispatcher for the first time asking about the incident.
No, I was just about to call you. I was just about to click on your number. I'm honestly not even, positive what's going on. Alright, and you have the fire department, EMS, and all that stuff, right? We do not.
The clock is ticking, and state police makes contact with Carroll County again about 10 minutes later, asking again why EMS was not responding to the scene where Jackson's body was found.
You guys don't send EMS out there to confirm that the guy...
Well, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to report it, you don't touch it, provide information, and you cooperate with authorities. Yes, you call your local law enforcement and the coroner.
Is that since they're medical people? A paramedic is on scene.
Now, the paramedic the Carroll County dispatcher is referring to is an off-duty dispatcher with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office who is also a paramedic. Now, we will be referring to this woman as employee number 2, who can be heard on the original call with employee number 1.
I mean, I asked them if they wanted me to contact the coroner. They told me no. They never told me to dispatch. It's a dispatcher and a deputy that found them. The dispatcher's a paramedic. I asked them if they were going to...
So the dispatcher's a paramedic because they said that there was a paramedic on scene at some point, but I think this paramedic and this deputy have been drinking and hit this guy.
Start CPR, they told me no.
Now, shortly after this call, a Mount Carroll police officer was first to arrive to the scene before both employees in question were allowed to leave. But that would not mark the end of these employees' involvement in this case. On the very next day, Monday, July 29th, both employee 1 and employee 2 were notified by Sheriff Clipping they were being put on paid administrative leave, and that they were not only subjects of an internal investigation, but also the subjects of an official Illinois State Police investigation for the death of Jackson Kradle. Now, the scope of the investigation was not limited to discovering the body, as documents from the Sheriff's Department accused both employees of violating state vehicle code in direct relation to Jackson's death, and conduct that would discredit the department. But the questions go beyond that, even showing an interest in what both employees were doing in the hours prior to Jackson's death. The employees were set to be interrogated by Carroll County 2 days later, but investigators never got to ask those questions, as both employees resigned that morning.
Shocker. It is not a shock to people that are paying attention.
Now, we're still waiting for anything official from Illinois State Police and the prosecutor's office to release anything about their special investigation. Now, I have reached out to employee 1 and employee 2 named in the documents we received. We left a message for one, and the other would only speak to their spouse, who essentially said no comment.
Would only speak to their spouse, who essentially said no comment. So the paramedic, or I don't know if she's a paramedic or a dispatch for paramedic, and a deputy are married, and they've killed somebody.
This is something that has absorbed this community for really the last 100 days, but really what it comes down to is this family has been waiting for answers. What have you heard from them? Yes, well, I actually saw the entire family today, including the mother for the first time. They heard these recordings as well, and obviously an emotional response. They've been asking questions for a long time, and now they're getting closer to the truth. Getting closer to the truth, that's the most important thing, although...
Closer to the truth, we shall see.
There's still a lot left to be desired for them, as they want the people who may be responsible for anything that may have happened to be held accountable and have justice brought to them. We will have more from them tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Well, an important update and more updates to come. Kyle, thank you. And you can listen to all of those calls we've received in full, as well as those documents. Those are live right now on kwqc.com. You can also check those out at the KWQC News app.
Okay, so this is from November the 11th. The first one was from August 5th, 2024. So August 5th, 2024, November 11th, 2024. And now we're up to Jackson Kradle's death ruled a homicide by jury. The jury's decision came down on the second day of the coroner's inquest. So what's happened is the special prosecutor has decided to turn over to a grand jury instead of a preliminary hearing, because a grand jury is some secret squirrel shit, and you can't know who the grand jury are. You can't know what's going on, what's said in their preliminary hearing is open to the public. See how that works? Months after his body was found along Illinois Route 78, a jury has decided that 18-year-old Jackson Kradle's death was a homicide. A formal coroner's inquest took place this week where the court examined evidence and other materials related to the investigation. Hours of testimony and playings of recorded conversations took place over 2 days, with the jury's decision coming down at the end of the second day. Those in the courtroom said you could hear a pin drop before the jury delivered its ruling. Carroll County Coroner Matt Jones told the news channel last year that forensic pathologist Dr. Mark Peters determined the cause of death to be blunt force trauma to the head due to a motor vehicle pedestrian crash. The focus of the inquest was to establish a manner of death, i.e. suicide, homicide, undetermined accidental, etc. After leaving the courtroom, Kradle's family and loved ones told News 8 that they were happy to finally receive some answers months after his death. Hearing a lot of the information for the very first time, they added that this is just the beginning and hope to get the ball rolling with charges being filed. While the death has been ruled a homicide, no suspects have been named and no charges have been filed at this time. Well, we know a couple of them have been fired. Government been fired. Investigators have been focused on 2 people in Kradle's death. That's the 2 off-duty sheriff's employees who found Kradle and called non-emergency to report the body around 3:30 a.m. on July 28th. Matt Herpstreith, a former sheriff's deputy, and Amy Hubble, a former county dispatcher. She's dispatch. You have dispatch for law enforcement, and then you have dispatch for EMS. So she's a paramedic dispatcher. Were questioned during the inquest. With their attorney present, both declined to answer questions about the incident and what led up to it. Neither have been charged in the case or been identified as suspects. Although the 2 didn't speak about that night during the inquest, recorded conversations of their interaction with the Illinois State Police revealed more. Hours of recording played during the inquest on Tuesday showed that both thought, I'm guessing that's the deputy, swerved in time to miss Kradle. He was driving, admitted to drinking, but said he was sober when they found Kradle. In a second interview, he said he couldn't be sure if he missed the body. So, they were drinking at I think it was a retirement party, but when they left, he was sober when he found the body. When he hit the body and found the body, he was sober. So, that impact sobered him up. The inquest also showed a video of a pickup truck at the Savannah car wash about 30 minutes after the deputy and Hubble found Kradle's body. They hit the body, and I'm going to show you how we know that. Refused to say whether it was him in the video, though he had previously told investigators he'd been to the car wash. On Tuesday, autopsy results presented by Jones in court revealed Kradle was found lying face down when he was hit by the vehicle, resulting in massive injuries on both sides of his head, his back, and his right shoulder. He was only wearing swimming trunks when he was found, and autopsy indicated he was dragged after the impact. Human DNA, hair, and swimming trunk fiber were found on the underside of the deputy's truck. On day 2 of the inquest, an Illinois State Police forensic investigator testified the DNA overwhelmingly matched Kradle's. Now, they said he was lying down when he was hit. Okay, if he was lying down and he was on the side of the road while was the deputy driving on the side of the road, if he was lying down in the road, how did the deputy not see him in the road? It always asks more questions than it answers. The autopsy also concluded that Kradle's blood alcohol content at the time of his death was 0.192 with THC present in his system. The intoxicants may have affected his balance, possibly explaining why he was lying in the roadway when he was hit. Nobody said he was lying in the roadway, but it sounds better once they have time to think about it if they can say he was lying in the road or didn't see him. Testimony from Kradle's girlfriend on Tuesday revealed what happened the night before he died and where he was last seen. Around 5 p.m. on Saturday, July 27th, local first responders and others were at a retirement party at Copper Cow in Mount Carroll. Kradle and his girlfriend, Madeline Stevens, was among the partygoers. Afterwards, they went to a get-together at Kradle's family farm, where Stevens said Kradle was consuming alcohol. Next, the 2 were dropped off at Kradle's father's house, but he became agitated and left the house on foot. It was the last time Kradle was seen alive. Local first responders and others were at a retirement party, likely drinking, and then the deputy and his girlfriend got on the road because they're above the law and now they've killed somebody. Reports indicate that Kradle took his last breath after being found by the deputy and the girlfriend, who were also at the same retirement party. The two employees resigned before an internal investigation could be completed. The Illinois State Police has completed this investigation, and the case is now in the hands of the Illinois State Appellate Prosecutor's Office. Since the day Kradle was found, family and friends have rallied together to demand answers to what happened on the morning of July 28th. Well, they will deflect, they will lie, they will cover, but here's what they have to say.
Well, more breaking news this hour. A jury in MT.CARROLL ruled late this afternoon saying 18-year-old Jackson Kradle's death is a homicide. It's the second day for evidence and testimony in the coroner's hearing on how he was hit and killed while lying on a Carroll County roadway.
Drew Coffey has been in the courtroom all day and joins us live now with more details. Good evening, Drew.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Shelby. Just more than an hour ago, we came out of the Carroll County Courthouse behind me, where we waited with friends and family on a verdict on the circumstances and manner in which Jackson Kradle died. Now, when the 6 jurors and 2 alternate jurors came out, you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet. But ultimately, their verdict was that Jackson Kradle's death was a homicide. Now, he was found back on July 28th in the morning on Route 78. And this is after hours, numerous hours, Tuesday and today, of testimony, recorded conversations being heard. But among those who testified was the 2 people who found Jackson. That would be Amy Hubble, who was a former 911 dispatcher, and Matt Herpstreith, a former sheriff's deputy. Both of them worked for Carroll County before they resigned. And the family, after they came out of the courtroom, says that they're happy that this is the first time in almost 6 months when all this information is being unfolded in front of them. But they say this is just the beginning, and they hope to get the ball rolling more on this case.
Hopefully arrests are made soon, and then we'll go on with that, you know, the trial for that.
Hopefully arrests are made, but I'm just saying government cover for government, and this is where we are still at. Doesn't look like it's getting any better. Anyway, let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe, and I'm out.
Special prosecutor can't bring charges, and they need to take it to a grand jury. Let them decide.
Yeah, sure.
Now, it's important to note that no suspects have been listed so far in this case, and there's no person of interest. And the family, like you said, want charges to be filed to get this case moving further along so they can remember Jackson Kradle and have some closure. John, Shelby, back to you.
I'm out.